My good friend Lusaint and I sat down at dopeYEAH Club for a chat. She had performed some of her new songs with her band at dopeYEAH the night before and was very excited to talk about that. She tells me about the experience of being produced by Egg White, who's done Adele, and about how wonderful it was to work with him. Lusaint chats about growing up in Manchester as a shy child and breaking through that shyness with singing, which has always been a natural outlet for her. She recalls being spellbound by the sounds of Ella Fitzgerald, Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, and always been drawn to that sound, but also been inspired by the stage presence of the likes of Lauryn Hill, Mary J. Blige and Stevie Nicks. She finishes off our chat with a beautiful acoustic version of her track Dark Horse. Lusaint. On the podcast today we got the wonderful Lusaint, who's a personal friend of mine, one of the best UK singers in a very, very long time. I think she's going on to huge things in the next couple of years. You're going to see this girl everywhere. Amazing, incredible songs, incredible voice, incredible band. The future is hers. Lusaint, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
So you did a show here last night.
Mm-hmm.
How was that for you?
Loved it. That was the first show that I've done really with the band. Incredible feeling to do it for the first time. I mean, yeah, I've got a single coming out, which is happening next week. It's called Dark Horse, and we performed that live for the first time last night, which was an amazing feeling. So I'm just, super happy to be here. Loved it.
You did that song with Egg White, so he's for people out in podcast world wouldn't probably know, but he's like a major songwriter, and he's worked with lots of different major artists. Yeah. So he broke Adele with Chasing Pavements. So when I originally got that songwriting session with him, which was about 2 years ago, I was very shocked, but I was super happy that he liked my voice and wanted to work with me. I was in the studio with him about 5 or 6 times, and obviously still in contact with him all the time, but to be able to work with him in his studio, which is in his home, was the most incredible experience. And I've not yet worked with anybody with such professionalism, and he's just got a way about him when you're in the studio. I was just in awe of how he works. It was an incredible feeling to work with him, and to have my first single with him is, an unreal feeling. So this is kind of the start of the journey, really. Now, I mean, you've been doing it a while, obviously, but in the kind of bigger context. So, as I said, you've been singing for several years now, I mean, at different levels.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that all start? So you're obviously from Manchester. Well, not obviously, but you are from Manchester.
Yeah.
So you grew up there. So tell us a story about like how you ended up sort of getting into music from a young age. How did it all develop?
So I'd probably say I've been singing for properly for around 7 years. But when I was younger, I was very, very, very shy. I still am a little bit now. I'm trying to overcome that. Things like this, working on. But it's basically when I was about 10, 11 years old, I got my first part in a Christmas carol concert. So at this point of my life, when I was super, super shy, my teachers asked me, everybody was kind of invited to do this audition. And I got up, sang a hymn, and everybody was quite shocked, thought, okay, don't know where this has come from, but let's go with it. And then I sang at that Christmas carol concert every year on my own. So it definitely helped me discover who I was in a way, because I was so shy and didn't really have, many friends, and I struggled throughout school, even from primary school, secondary school. It was always quite a struggle for me to sort of get by, because I did, socially struggle quite a lot. So my outlet was always been singing, from a very young age, very much behind closed doors. But when I got an opportunity to do it for myself, in front of people, that was always the only time that I felt myself. So leading on from primary school, I then went into secondary school, and I got a lead role of, obviously it was secondary school, nothing major going on, but I got the role of Sandy in Grease. And again, being very shy in school, everybody was quite shocked about the fact that I got this part. And also having an acting role was very difficult for me on a confidence level. But just to be able to sing and do what I did on stage was an amazing feeling. And even now, at this point of my career, the only time when I ever feel myself is on stage. When I'm performing music, that's the only time that I feel myself. So I'm just so happy to be, you know, this is my career and I can't believe it. Yeah.
I can understand that. I'm pretty similar, you know, because, you know, I come from a performing background as well. And I had a very similar state of affairs when I was a kid. I was a bit of a loner, didn't really mix with the other kids and was quite shy and reserved and sort of just, you know, literally, it sounds very sad, but, you know, kept to myself in the playground kind of thing. Didn't have a lot of friends when I was very young. It wasn't like I wanted friends. I actually was just liked being on my own. But funny enough, like you say, I remember when I was a kid, like one of the teachers asking someone to sing a song. And I just put up my hand and said, I'll sing a song. And everyone was really shocked. And I stood up on the desk and I sung like a song called Screwball Was a Racehorse. And it was like, it's just a silly tune. But I think, would you think it's fair to say that kind of being a singer sort of emotionally empowers you, like in a certain level of, that's the moment when the stars align. You know, you kind of know yourself a little bit. Yeah. And it's not, it doesn't even feel like it's a kind of, it's not an ego thing. People often don't understand that about singers. It's that you want to somehow connect with the wider world, and the best way you can do it.
Yeah. And I think if I've ever performed at anywhere before, and if I have made a person cry, or if there's a story behind something that they've done in their life, and I sort of help them through something, that for me is all I care about. You know, if I can engage with somebody and, you know, it helps them in any way whatsoever, that for me is everything. And I think that's the whole point of this career, like to be able to make this music, to be able to write this music and it come from my heart, and to let people connect with that. That is honestly all I'm doing this job for. And if I could, you know, have people that come to my shows and tell me that, then I've done a good job. You know?
Well said. I think that's exactly how a lot of artists will see it. It's that kind of unspoken conversation where, obviously, in the music business, you know, the egos do come into it and lots of other psychological aspects. But I think the purity in the end is just that connection, as you say. It's connecting with other human beings. Yeah. And it's the best way you can do it, and it's a kind of a pure way, and you know, you have the confidence in that ability. Yeah. Like when you sing, it's like when you're in the other social norms of trying to converse with people, and it's difficult, and body language, all the things that come with it. But when you're singing on stage, that all kind of falls away, and it's just you and the audience, and you know that there's this kind of direct connection between you and them. It's kind of unspoken, and that's why humans do it, I suppose. We on another level, but it's not often talked about, you know. And obviously, it's what a fragile environment it is if you bring other aspects in that interfere with that, you know. Yeah, I mean, like it's true. Like the music industry is very tough, as we know. So it's always, you know, about, you have to be careful about who you surround yourself with, basically, at every level. Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, as an introvert, I think it's quite difficult in general terms to speak to people and converse with people, and for them to not necessarily not connect with you, but you don't feel like you're maybe giving everything that you are to that person when you're in a conversation with them, because you are quite shy and introverted. But on stage, if I've got certain lyrics or something that can help that person, that I know that I've helped connect with them on that kind of level, that for me is everything. And yeah, definitely, I think sort of helps relationships as well with other people. It's a totally unique thing, but I am definitely learning as I go along that being able to connect with people when I sing on stage is a huge thing for me. Yeah, it helps you and it helps them, and everybody kind of wins.
Yeah.
So, in the family at home, did you get a lot of support from your parents singing? Were they very supportive of what you wanted to do, and how did all that play out? Early days.
Yeah, they've always been my number one fans, which has been amazing. From from being a young child, they always sort of knew that there was something there. But I think being in Manchester as well, you know, sorry, there's a lot of talk about the fact that there is opportunities for young musicians, but I think that a lot of that is very much sort of in London, and there are certain things that go on in Manchester that can help you move forward and things, but I think I don't necessarily come from a musical background, so I think when it came, you know, my mum, she worked actually in TV she worked for the BBC for a number of years, and my dad was a fireman, and I think when it came to me just performing and getting through school and having these opportunities that came up, it was quite a shock to them, but they just sort of went with it. And then the older that I got, there were a few more opportunities that came my way, and they were always so supportive of everything that I did. But it's like now with what's happening, I think that they can't believe it, and they're just really happy for me, and that's all I've ever wanted. There's never been any qualms or anything from them that has sort of made them think, oh, actually maybe you should think about doing something else. They've always really believed in me, which is huge.
And where does that voice come from? I mean, because you know, people who maybe aren't so familiar with your music, you have an extraordinary voice. I mean, again, on every level, for me as a singer, you have all the bits, you know, to make it to whatever level you want to make it to. And that's kind of God-given, for the lack of another expression. So where did it come from? Like on your mum's side, your dad's side? Is there anyone in the family that was a really great singer at any point?
My grandma has a very good voice. She's never done anything with it, but I used to go frequently, I'd say probably every Sunday, to church with my grandma. She lives in Yorkshire, so we travel every weekend to go and see her. And yeah, every Sunday we go to church, and she always made me, she was always the one, because I was so quiet. I would always sing very quietly, and she'd always get me to, you know, sing louder. And because she could always hear that I could sing, but she just knew that I was shy and didn't have the confidence to do it. But when she used to stand next to me every week, her voice was just beautiful and so loud and great tone. Yeah, obviously, so my grandma's Catholic, so we go to Catholic church every Sunday with these hymns that kind of are still stuck in my mind to this day, and I sing them all the time. But yeah, her voice was incredible and still is.
It's like the Aretha Franklin story, but it's the one thing I've always kind of related to your approach to vocals, and sort of like, say, for Aretha Franklin, and I've always thought that, say, gospel music is very close to rock music, because they sing out. You know, they really belt it out. Very little falsetto. They don't go for they go for the full throttle. You know what I mean? And if you listen to that, there was that amazing documentary, I think, Amazing Grace, have you seen it, with Aretha Franklin with the choir in the church? It's unbelievable. And but the power of that kind of people together in a room, going for it, you know what I mean? That kind of unity in a room is amazing. It's an amazing thing. It's funny that because I grew up Catholic as well, but I'm not Catholic anymore, but I grew up Catholic. And you know, I used to, even enjoy the hymns, you know, at school and whatever. But I never knew that side of you, you know, that you've actually had that in your life. So what were your parents playing at home, you know, on the record player? I'd
say I first heard, so my dad was very much into a lot of Motown, but I think the one thing that I always remember to this day, I was sat at home, my dad was just playing some music, and it was Ella Fitzgerald's voice that just did something to me, and I cannot explain to this day when I heard that voice how it made me feel, but I always remember, like, lyrically, the tone of her voice. And even now, all the time in the house, I'm constantly playing her music. So it was Ella Fitzgerald, Nina Simone, Billie Holiday. Those are the voices that just, made me come alive. And when it came to me ever thinking about writing music, I would always go into the same room that the CDs were being played and just write down it was mainly poems at the time. When I was a lot younger, I'd always be writing poems. And I'd never really thought about writing lyrics to a song. It just seemed to be more of a poem thing. I don't know why, but whenever I heard these voices, it just, the interest was very much to write poems. So I'd do that for a long time and just listen to these CDs over and over and over again. So I'd say it was definitely those three voices that really, I was spellbounded by their tone.
And any of the more modern sort of crowd, what's really impressed you when you were younger, or even now?
I'd probably say like Leanne LaHava's first album that she brought out. I listened to that I still listen to that even now. That's a huge influence for me. And then other influences like Mary J. Blige, Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill's voice to me is something that I will always go back to. Her tone of voice, everything, and even her stage presence. I always go back to her live shows, and everything about her stage presence is amazing. So I always go back to that. I think it's a huge thing for me actually, because I'm still to keep performing with my band, and I've got these songs now for the EP that I can't wait to perform again. So I think watching other artists is something that I always do before I go on stage to just give me that lift. And Lauryn Hill, Mary J. Blige are the people that I constantly go back to. They just have a presence about them on stage that, I love.
So, because I've known you for maybe 18 months now, and I know that you're obviously, you get a lot of offers to guest on records, and you've done the odd little guesting appearance here, but you've kind of kicked back a little bit against that, because I know such a huge scene in the UK, the dance scene and that kind of pop side. So it's very tempting to, sort of get involved in guesting on lots of different records, and because huge streaming numbers, and it seems to be dominating the industry to a certain degree in the UK. But you've kind of kicked back a little bit, especially the last while I've known you, that you've got a very specific vision now of where you want to go as an artist. And obviously, the Mary J. Blige thing and all the influences that you're telling me about, it's kind of harping back a bit, but trying to get that balance between old and new. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sort of very, as much as I am influenced by today's music, because there is a lot of music out there that I do love now. And I think when it comes to me being an artist, it's taken quite a while for me to get to the point that I am, as in the kind of music that I want to create. And I spent a lot of time, so I had a cover, an En Vogue cover that did very well for me on Shazam. I think, like about 45,000 Shazams in one night, which happened in 2019 for a cover that I recorded sort of in my bedroom kind of thing, that was not expected at all. And again, that was an older cover that was not expected to do anything. So when that happened, I kind of wanted to think, okay, so people have liked me for that kind of music, so therefore I need to go and create something again that's like acoustic, that kind of sound, like more ballady. Okay, that's what people like. So I went to many, many writing sessions and realized after about a year that something wasn't clicking with me, and I knew that I'd got this huge jazz influence, like jazz pop influence, that I'd not done anything with. And I didn't really know how to go about it. And I was just, because I got to a point in my career where I didn't know who I wanted to be, I had a bit of a breakdown and thought, I can't do this anymore, I can't go on, because I'm not getting what I want out of music. And through me feeling that way, I wrote like 2 of the songs like within 2 days that are on my EP now, that just sort of brought something out of me that I'd never been able to create before. And 2 of the songs, there's one called Sober, one called Fall For You. And I literally wrote them so quickly because of what I was feeling, and everything just sort of came out lyrically, melodically. Everything just happened within those 2 days. And I think for me to recognize who I wanted to be, even within those 2 days, was such an amazing feeling to think, okay, this is exactly where I know who I am now, who I want to be, the kind of music that I want to create. And but being able to explore that and not have anybody judge me for it. I'd gone through a bit of a bad time with people that were involved in my life at one stage that weren't maybe allowing me to express myself in the way that I wanted to. So being able to do that and not be judged for it was such a great feeling, because I could now be this person that I'd wanted to be for so long. And now to keep creating that kind of music is like a real outlet for me, to be able to have this feeling whilst I'm creating music and know that it's exactly who I am. Yeah, that for me has been amazing. So I just want to keep creating now.
I think you've done a great job, though, of surrounding yourself kind of with the right team, because all of these, it's like anything in life. You need a great team, you know, like you're the captain of the ship, but you need amazing people around you to make and to protect you, you know. And you've got obviously your life partner and music partner, Bjorn Woodhull. He's amazing musician and, you know, great support of you, and Rob Davis, your manager. I think, you know, because we've known each other a little while now, and it's, you know, sometimes management and labels can be quite bullish about getting artists to do things that they don't want to do. I've quite admired the way you and your team have really worked together and, you know, serving the music, like what's going to bring the best out of this. Sometimes I think there's too much commercial concern, and I understand that it's a business as well, but okay, say for instance dance music's very powerful at the moment, let's go that way, but that's not for you, it's not your style, it's not who you are, and you know, it's not your vision. And I think it's just patience, and having the patience to stick with the plan. Look guys, if we just stick with this, we write great songs and it will be timeless, because I think you make timeless music, you know. And again, I think you know, especially there's a lot of music that's been made at the moment that's great and it's for now, but will it be there in 20 years? We'll see. Whereas certain kinds of music just stands the test of time, and I think what you're doing is definitely going to do that. And I'm not just being nice when I say it, but you have got that once in a generation voice for me. It's like everyone I've ever played your voice to has gone, oh my God, that girl's voice is incredible. Everybody, bar none, ever. And that's when you know someone's got a serious chance to kind of go to that level that you want to go. Whatever that is, we don't know. And it's, you know, it's a very tough business, but I think you've got the right infrastructure to cope with it and the support network to cope with it, because without that, I've seen so many artists get crushed, you know, by the system. And it's tragic to see. I've met people of my own career as a producer, they just couldn't cope with it because they didn't have the team. And they didn't have the support, and they weren't being listened to. So that must be a very great comfort to you moving forward now. You know, you've got the support.
I think I've been with my manager, Rob, who's over there. He's honestly been the biggest support for me. I think as well, it was probably around a year ago when I did decide to change, not change my sound completely, but just go down a bit of a new avenue. And I was quite nervous to tell him actually that I wanted to do something that was new and not sort of complete pop. And I was nervous because, you know, I think there's definitely, I think in the music industry, when it comes to jazz, or jazz pop, there is definitely an avenue that you can go down and do well with it, but it's not as common as maybe it was back in the day. And I think the music that I've got that I'd like to think is timeless, like you mentioned, and it will hopefully do well. I mean, I'm yet to release my first single, which is out next week, but you know, you never know how your music is going to go. But at the same time, I'm confident with what I've managed to achieve within the last year, and being able to have this opportunity with my manager. And like you mentioned, the team that are around me, I feel very, very lucky right now to be doing what I'm doing. So just keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think sometimes young artists put a lot of pressure on themselves. It's like, first single's great, by the way. I love the tune. I think it sounds fantastic. So I'm very excited for that. But it's just the first tune. You know,
Yeah,
it's like if it goes
exactly.
great, it goes great. If it doesn't, you get on to the next one.
Exactly,
You know,
yeah.
you have the talent, you have the team, great writing team, great people around you. It's just, if you just stick with it, the cream rises to the top. You know, I've said this before, but it just does. You just stick with it, you'll have your day. You know,
Yeah.
it will come sooner or later because you have the voice. There's no faking going on here. You know, there's like, I see a lot of pretenders, you know, out there, and I've worked with them myself as a producer. You get in the studio and you go, God, how am I going to produce my way out of this one? But when it's with people like yourself, it's a joy, and it's so easy. For other songwriters will say the same thing to you, and producers. They're just, it's a joy to work with artists who are the real deal, but they're rare. They're rare creatures, you know? I mean, there's so much music going out there all the time, but most of it doesn't cut it for me, you know, and especially vocally. And they haven't done their homework, and they haven't learned their chops. Like, you know, I'm a bit sort of old school that way. I like people to have earned the respect to be where they are, you know, and that's why, you know, a lot of the players I work with all the time, they have to be of a certain standard, because it will stand the test of time. If you get surrounded by that kind of musicianship, you know, I mean, I know, as we were talking about Bjorn, your partner, I mean, he's an incredible musician, and that must keep you on your toes as well. And
Definitely.
you know, because you've got someone who's his standards are very high, and that's good. I think to have those high musical standards are great, and also obviously engage in the wider world. It's not saying that you can't have remixes of your songs and dip into kind of more pop stuff, but at times. But I think the core of what you do is kind of organic moving forward, and that's why I don't think it will ever date. It will, you know, you can still play these records in 20 years; they will sound fresh.
Yeah.
But sometimes, if you go down certain genres, they date very quickly.
Yeah,
You know,
of
within
course.
a year it's gone. But I know that's not where you're coming from anyway. It's from a pure place of, this is the right home for my voice. It's
Yeah.
where it sits right. It's where I communicate best. It's, you know, it's the right fit. It's not cynical in any way what you're trying to do. It's trying to be honest.
Yeah.
And this is the most honest way you can sort of move forward with your message and your kind of connection with your audience.
Yeah, and I did write on the EP, I wrote some of the songs with Bjorn, and that was a really great experience actually, because I also found somebody, another writing partner that completely understood, you know, who I was, what I wanted to write about, melodically, if everything was good enough. It was all, he's very critical of certain aspects of the writing time that we have together, which I always need. You always need that person that's going to be completely straight and honest with you.
Sure.
When you're writing a song, and we definitely bounce off each other really well in that respect. So that's been another great experience, because, you know, I think when you are working with so many other people, and, you know, a previous team that I was working with were kind of putting me in a lot of different situations, which was very enjoyable and got me to meet some great people. But I do feel much more in my comfort when I have just a few people around me, and I know that I can keep going back to that person if I have a certain idea or I want to move forward with a song. I think when you've got so many people that you're working with, it can sometimes be a bit too much, especially for my personality. I just need a small amount of people that I'm working with, and that tends to be how I get a song finished, or something that I'm really happy with finished, rather than a lot of people. So that's been great to have one writing partner that has completely understood me.
It's focus, really, isn't it? As well, you know, you're focused. You can get so sort of confused and distracted. Because I know the whole, there's a phrase, I can't think of it off the top of my head, like where people just go on that merry-go-round of the writers, just literally dozens of writers, and all the different writers are taking them in different directions, and at the end of it, they don't know who they are, where they are even. It's just so confusing, you know. Like everyone has a different vision for you, and it's like, you know, and they're all trying to impose it on you. And also, often you're writing songs just in a day or 2 days or whatever, and so there's not even a lot of time to really get to know somebody, and then they've put a bit of a track together, and then all of a sudden the track's going this way. It's like, and you end up, who am I? After 6 months, you know, people have gone out to LA and done it, the whole LA kind of writing thing. And I understand to a certain degree with certain pop acts, that's the right way to go, maybe, because they're trying to kind of produced their way out of it. I've never been a fan of that myself, but I could be proven to be wrong. It's only my 2 cents worth, but I feel, I often say this, that you've got to serve the song, and in that way, I think that's what you do by combining the right people together and your voice, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think this is where a lot of singers sometimes get lost. After a while, just what they do doesn't make sense. Who are they? You don't know what kind of where to put them in. If there was a record store, if they have them anymore, which department do they put them in? Because they're all over the place.
Yeah.
1 minute they're doing a dance tune, then they're doing a funk tune, they're doing a rock tune. What are you?
Yeah, and there was a lot of situations that I went into where people might have heard some of the songs that I had online or something from somewhere else, and they'd kind of pigeonhole you straight away for how they thought that your voice should sound. So they've set up a track, like you mentioned, you go in there and you sing along to this track, and you know that it's not quite working for you, but you don't know really who you are, so you're kind of just going along with it. And I did that for a while, and then it was basically when myself and Bjorn got into the studio and started working on this music that's a part of my EP, that everything became normal again, and it felt right. And that was the first time that I've felt that, and it's still continued now. But like you mentioned, when you go into a studio with whoever that person might be and they start playing this track and expect you to sing along to it, whether it's a dance track or whatever it might be, that you start singing along to it and you know that it's not right for you, and there's no worse feeling than that, because you're trying to keep up with something that isn't right for you. So I had a lot of that, but I'm glad to sort of be past that now, and I think it's more being able to say in the studio, this is who I am, this is who I want to be, and now I can do that because I know, whereas before it's all learning. So I feel very happy now, which is great.
Yeah, and you kind of learn how to say no.
Yeah.
Someone said to me,
That's another thing as
my
well.
wife once told me the phrase, like, sort of, rather than saying no, she would say, that's not working for me. Great way of saying no.
That is a good way of saying no.
For me, And I use it all the time. And so collaborators, you've mentioned dopeYEAH, who's brilliant, and Bjorn obviously was fabulous as well, and two really hugely strong writers. I know Egg is kind of already massively established as a writer. Anybody else that you've worked with that you really loved working with besides those two?
There's been a lot of people that I've loved working with. I worked with Francis, Jez Ashurst. There's too many to mention, to be honest.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think being able to, I've written a lot of songs with them, and I'm definitely going to be going back into the studio with these people in the near future. And I think just for me to be able to let them know who I am now, and I think once I've started to get more music out there, and things will hopefully just start opening up, and
you're taking control, really.
Yeah, and but being allowed to have that is very freeing for any artist. I think a lot of the time you can be told what you should be doing, and the fact that I am very free at the moment to decide who I want to write with and where I want to take this project is great. And I think being able to go back into the studio now with whomever that might be, and to give them, music that I'm so happy with already, to say this is who I am, this is the kind of music that I want to write, will help everybody. And I'm really looking forward now to just getting back into writing again. I've had a little bit of time off, and I think creatively, when you've been working so hard on your first sort of EP, you kind of need a bit of time off to just see what's going to happen, gather your thoughts again, and get back into the creative side of things, which I'm very much ready for now. I'm very excited for what's to come.
So if you were to collaborate with, singing-wise, with someone, do a duet with, who would it be? Just having some fun here. So if you had your choice of people to sing with, to do, someone says, like, you can sing with anyone tomorrow, who would it be?
That is a very good question. Who would it be? Do you know, let me have a think, wait. There's like a couple of people that I have in mind, but I think I probably, if I ever had an opportunity to sing with Lauryn Hill, I think that would be yeah, life made.
Lauryn Hill it is.
Yeah.
And then taking that just another step forward, I said this to someone just on a recent podcast as well. If you were to put besides obviously Bjorn, who'd be in your band, but besides him, who would your dream band be? Like, you've worked with quite a lot of different musicians now. Have you got like dream musicians you'd love to have in your band?
I think like Fleetwood Mac, like
just
come on,
Fleetwood Mac.
Just Fleetwood Mac. That would be great. I mean, there's actually, I was listening to one of their albums actually last week, and as much as I'd probably say there's slight influence with them in my music, but just Stevie Nicks and her voice is just, another person. Again, if I had any opportunity she would be up there with being able to duet with her. Like, her voice is just phenomenal, and she's very, very much an influence of mine too.
Yeah, she's a very kind of strong female role model as well, isn't she?
Yeah.
I mean, just getting onto that for a second. So obviously being a woman in the music business and dealing with all the trials and tribulations, I mean, has there been challenges for you in that respect coming through the industry that you felt that were difficult for you being a woman?
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, not obviously. No one would ever want to put it as an obvious problem within the music industry for obvious reasons, but I definitely feel being sort of introduced to the music industry a couple of years ago, and I'd never really had that at all before a couple of years ago. Being from Manchester, and a lot of people assume that there's a lot of opportunity there, but there's not. And I'm going to be honest as a Mancunian that there's not a crazy amount of opportunity to be a part of the music industry. But I'd say when something happens, when I had the music that had kind of been put onto the scene quite quickly with a cover, and being introduced to the music industry then, there was definitely I wouldn't even necessarily put it down to being female, but it was just an introduction to the industry that was quite shocking to me because of how very fast-paced the whole thing was. When you have something that's done reasonably well, how much, it creates I don't really even know what the word is, but there was just a lot of people that were very interested in this track, basically, and it can be very sort of throwaway how it happens. So, you have the interest organically, and then people want to take over this song. And, it was a shock to me how it all sort of happened so quickly. But then at the same time, it also gave me experience very fast and made me work hard, because I didn't want to be treated in a certain way, and I wanted to get... Even though it's taken me a couple of years to find who I wanted to be as an artist, it made me want to do that. I wanted to find out who I was, to get myself across in the best way possible to the industry, and to let people, rather than being somebody that I knew I wasn't. And that's why I found it so frustrating for a long time, because I was thinking, I've got so much music, but I'm not 100% happy with this. And it's coming across in the way that I portray myself, in the way that I'm performing this music. It's not who I am. But being able to have that now, it sort of gives me this confidence to stand up for myself. That if there is any time that I'm feeling sort of, I don't know, there's just been a few times where I felt like I've not been able to stand up for myself, and now I can, and I have a voice to be able to do that based on my music, based on who I know that I am and who I want to be. There's just been a few people in the past that have kind of made me think that I should be something else, or that I'm not being the person that I should be. And now that I have what I have, I feel a lot more grounded.
And your gang. You've got your gang.
And that is huge. It's huge.
Because I remember years ago, and when I started out, and when I was in a band in Dublin, and we played at this club called McGonagall's. It was a famous little club back in the day in Dublin, and we had this band supporting us. And anyway, they played before us, and I was I was being a bit of a dick, really. I was like, they're rubbish, they can't. I'm laughing at them, thinking these are rubbish band, they're no good. But at the end of the show, I saw they kind of had their own sound guy, and they had like their manager was with them, and I think even the accountant had turned up. They had this whole kind of gang around them, and I always remember feeling really jealous. I was like, God, I kind of like what they've got over there. It was you too.
No way.
It
Wow.
was you too. So what do I know? Thought he never amount to anything. But I could see there and then they were this tight unit of people.
Yeah.
And they're still together to this day. The manager already left them a few years ago. Most of the crew, everybody, even the same road crew, because actually my roadie at the time left us and joined the band as their roadie. He was one of the, and he's still with them right up to now. So, but it kind of taught me that lesson of kind of like, you can't do everything on your own. You need the infrastructure. And I always say to artists, for my 2 cents worth, it's like, get your gang right. It's all about the gang, looking out for each other and look after, taking care of each other and everybody doing their gig. You're the singer, they're the manager, they're the guitar player, whatever. Everybody knows their roles, but ultimately everybody's got everybody's back. And it makes you happier as well. You feel protected. Because with the gang, it's kind of, it can be impenetrable. I mean, you two went through all their stuff, nearly got dropped several times, but still the same band, still the same people. And I think this is it. It's, no man is, or woman, is an island. You need infrastructure. You need a team.
Yeah, and I think just having that confidence in your own art is so key to it all, because I found that when I wasn't as confident about the music that I was creating, that when I was in just speaking to people about it, I just didn't have that same confidence about me. And people can read through it, people can see through it when you're not as confident about your project. And I think that now that I've got to where I am, and it's taken a while, but the fact that I feel very confident about this, and I don't know where this project is going to lead me at all. You can only hope for the best with your own music. But I think as long as you have that confidence, it's so key to moving forward and feeling good about who you are. It's so important for me anyway.
I don't think you're going to have any problems. And, I've said this before. I think you've got, as I said, I keep harping on about it. You've got a great team of people. It's solid. You're an amazing singer, amazing songs. And it's like, I'm hoping this single does great. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it won't matter either way. You'll just get on to the next single. Or then I get it on the third one, or you get on the fourth, whatever. Maybe this one does it, maybe it's single 6, who knows?
But it will happen. Isn't it? It's just the start.
It's just the start of everything. And this is sometimes why I think there's too much pressure on artists, like, the first single's got to be a massive hit. Yeah, if it is, great, but we just get on to the next one.
Yeah.
And then we do it on the next one. Stick with it, They used to do this kind of more back in the day, and began a kind of culture in record companies where, the first single didn't do well. Literally, they were dropped by single 2 or single 3. But back in the day, they didn't do that. It was like they, the Police, I think it was like the 5th release of, I can't remember which single it became a hit, but it took them 5 times to release it before it was a hit.
Yeah.
I think it was Roxanne. I think it might have been the track they released, and it took 5 times before it was a hit. That's the much belief that the label had in them. Even with U2 and Ireland was the same.
Yeah.
Like I think it was the second album didn't do very well, and it was like a lot of labels would have dropped them, but Ireland stuck with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's actually quite a lot of new artists that I see that are obviously doing very well now, and I always go onto their Spotify and have a look at like some of their old material that you've never heard of, because they've just been coming through the ranks, and it takes time, and I'm willing to put that time in to make sure that it's right. And if people don't engage with a song first time round, that's fine. You keep moving, and as long as, like I mentioned, I'm happy with where the project is going, just keep believing in it, and you can only hope for the best. So
yeah, I think moving forward, you've got a clear vision now of what you want, and I think that will be the secret of your success, in all honesty, because as I said earlier on, slightly repeating myself, I've seen so many artists who kind of bend to the will of others around them way too much, and they get confused, and then they get unfocused, and they don't know who they are, what they're doing. And to be successful, I think that's the secret of success in any business, is focus.
Yeah.
And you know, you're focused in exactly what the plan is, where we're going, what we're going to do. And that's, you know, since I've known you now, I've seen you piece that together, and that will be what wins the day in my view.
Yeah, I remember speaking to you when it wasn't long after we first met, and I mentioned that there was this other side of me, if you like, this other influence that I knew I'd not explored yet, and you knew from the start that that was exactly where I should go, which I found so interesting, because when I kept mentioning, you know, there's this other side of music that I just really want to explore that I've not yet. And I think we ended up working on a track together, which I still like. I think it was very brief when we wrote it. And I was listening to it on the plane, actually, on the way here. And it's just, that was actually my first introduction to, okay, you can create this kind of music and this could work. And then I showed that and then a couple of other songs to people that I was working with. And they were like, yeah, this really suits your voice. Okay, let's look into this. And ever since that point, actually, you know, what I've been creating since then, I'm really happy with. So
it's the perfect fit.
Yeah.
You know, this is the thing. Don't fight it. I always try to say, don't fight that. You've got a perfect fit.
Yeah.
You know, and people love that. I mean, it's a kind of music, again, that's timeless. Even on a cynical business level, it'll go on forever, because it's like, it will never fade. It will never age. It's timeless music, and you're bringing your own uniqueness in the sense lyrically, and your narrative is modern.
Yeah.
It's, you know, different experience than, you know, someone who's writing songs 20 years ago. And I think sometimes people forget about that. You know, where you change the needle, move the needle, should I say, is in the narrative. You know, so what you're writing songs about and your experiences of life is a modern experience. So
yeah,
in that way, it's okay. You've got traditional instruments working in there, and you've got brass, and you've got guitars, like a lot of the things like Amy Winehouse tried to do, which is kind of that neck of the woods. And, you know, that was her experience as well. I thought the wonderful thing about Amy Winehouse, why her music would be timeless, was the narrative base of it. Those songs are just beautifully, you know, scripted in the sense of, and with all the imagery and the pain that she was trying to express, and finally took her away from us. You know, it killed her in the end.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was that true, you know? I mean, whatever you say about Amy Winehouse, you love her or hate her, I mean, that was such a true narrative. She wasn't faking it.
No.
Like, I'm in pain and I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And then, you know, she was gone. And I think your narrative is similar in that your lyrics is that you're trying to reflect your life, and that's where the modern element comes into it and sort of keeps it fresh, because there'll always be different ways of skinning a cat, as they say, and I'm a vegan, so sorry cats, just an expression. But there's always different ways of looking at a track, but ultimately it comes down to melody and lyric, and there's only so many ways you can do that. So really, in the end, it comes down to expression and how you express it, and what's the best way of you expressing it. And I felt from the very first time I met you, I just thought, you know how to do this. I knew you were shy as well, and I could empathize with that, because I could feel that shyness myself. And you know, I've sung myself, and the only time I feel, when my wife used to say, "Do you ever get nervous on stage?" I said, "No, not really. It's like the place I feel the most at home. I walk into a crowded room, I feel nervous, and I have to fake it sometimes myself and try and get myself into a personality to deal with it.
Yeah.
But inside, I'm kind of like, you know, get me out of here. I'm finding it difficult. But on stage, I don't have that. And I feel you're the same. Like when you just got up and sung, that, you know, Emily Byrne said the same thing. And she's very shy. And she was saying when she was 5, she just went into a market and got up on a box and started singing a song. And maybe we're trying to be heard in our own way.
Yeah.
It's our way of being heard, you know,
it's so true.
And connecting.
It's
the only way we can feel we can do it honestly.
Yeah, so
it's a
true.
kind of honest way, isn't it? Of like, look, this is me. I'm not perfect. I'm doing my best, and here's my experiences. You know, I hope it brings something to the table.
Yeah, and I feel it's quite sad in a way, because I always remember even being in primary school, and the only way that I could get across, not necessarily my personality, but just who I wanted to be, was through music. And, you know, I always kind of wanted to gain relationships, friendships, even with the teachers, you know, just to have something. So when they first experienced listening to my voice, and that did something to them. That was like, okay, I've sort of gained their respect now through the fact that I've done something for them that wasn't through conversation, but it was through my voice. So that makes me happy. But I feel like it's quite sad in a way that you want to connect with somebody, and the only way that you can do that is through music. I mean, it's a great, gift to have, don't get me wrong, but I think just in terms of forming relationships, which has always been a struggle for me, the only outlet that I've ever had is through singing and being on stage and being able to connect with people in that way. So I feel very lucky to have got that more than anything,
So, with everything you've learned now, and you're in a good place in your life, and as I said, you got a great team, you got great music, it's looking great, there's a plan, there's a way forward. So if you were to sort of talk to your young self, like 10-year-old child when you were shy and sort of introverted and feeling probably a bit lonely, what would you say to them? What would you say to that child?
I'd probably say to just keep being yourself and don't let other people put you down. I think when you are very shy and introverted as a child, there's so many, you come across a lot of people that will try and put you down for it or make you feel a certain way based on your personality, that you're not the person that you want to be, and therefore, I wouldn't necessarily say that I was bullied, but there was quite a few issues that happened when I was in school, and I was very much put down for who I was. And I think looking back at that little girl that was, spoken to in a certain way and had a lot of issues, to just keep being yourself and don't put yourself down for being who you are. Remember that you're that person for a reason, and you can't help who you are as a person. You can't help your personality. Everybody is different, but the fact that I've always had music as my thing and my, growing up was the only thing that I could ever go back to. I always remember just, again, going back to when I was listening to this music at home, and when I did ever get a chance to be at home on my own when my parents were out, that was the first thing that I'd do. I'd run downstairs, I'd put the CDs on, I'd sing, full voice and know that nobody was watching and just be myself, and recognizing that there was something there that I knew I wanted to work on and work on for myself. So I'd practice all the time. I managed to get some singing lessons that I got for myself as well, that I knew it was there. I knew that there was something that I wanted to work on, and that was always my focus, more than over everything. That was always my sole focus, was to just keep working on something that I knew that I was good at, which was singing, and I just wanted to get better and better. And in everyday life, when I was younger and struggling every single day, to have that was, I feel very lucky for, and not many people do have that, or maybe they do, and, but it's just more for me. That felt like my outlet, and that was something that I could constantly go back to and feel good about.
Well, Lusaint, look, thanks a million for doing the podcast. We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been brilliant. Last and not least, would you and Bjorn sing us a couple of tunes, please?
Yeah,
that would be
absolutely
amazing, just to kind of finish off the podcast would be brilliant. I'm sure people will be very interested in hearing you singing acoustically, which I know you do brilliantly.
I tried the cafe, I could ask in there. It's less a question, or more a prayer. No, I can't stop walking avenues. From dead to living, that all depends on you. You'll hear me when I see my head off, rum and cold to take the edge off. You got to live in hope, and I don't mind hanging on a dark horse. I know if I saw you, there'd be nothing I could do. I'm praying in the street for a lost cause, and all for you, it's all for you. You know how Andrew had a thing for me. Wanna see how it feels, jealousy. But I came here from a lonely world to run into you, a little drunk and unconcerned. You know me when I see my head off, rum and cold to take the edge off. You got to live in hope, and I don't mind hanging on a dark horse. I know if I saw you, there'd be nothing I could do. I'm praying in this tea for a last cause, and all for you, it's all for you. And I don't mind hanging on a dark horse. I know if I saw you, there'd be nothing I could do. I'm praying in this sheet for a last cause, and all for you, it's all for you, all for you. I was stupid, I was broke, but I won't go that way. I let you fool around, that's true. Yeah, you left with no disclosure. Yeah, you treat me like I'm sober, but I still want you. Everything was alright on that 13th floor. Loving you was easy, but I needed more. Lighting that cigarette as you call my flaws, another drink I poured. Yeah, I was stupid, I was broke, but I won't go that way. I let you fool around, that's true. Yeah, you left with no disclosure. Yeah, you treat me like I'm sober, but I still want you. You know you had me in a palm of your hand. This love was never ending, but you had other plans. Your toxic thoughts so easily spent, yet you're all I need. Yeah, I was stupid, I was broke, but I won't go that way. I let you fool around, that's true. Yeah, you left with no disclosure. Yeah, you treat me like I'm sober, but I still want you. Say I was stupid, I was broke, but I won't go that way. I let you fool around, that's true. Yeah, you left with no disclosure. Yeah, you treat me like I'm sober, but I still want you.